Okay, welcome back to the Adventure Within channel. My name is Andrew Fritz. I'm a clairvoyant healer and meditation teacher. And today I thought it'd be fun to talk about soul evolution. This is not something I necessarily created or came up with, but we are going to use this simple diagram of a traditional round clock. The ones we used to hang up on the wall to check time. Everything's digital now, so we tend to just kind of, at least I use my phone to check my time, or people have smartwatches and use that. But yeah, we'll keep it simple. We use this diagram of a clock, and I guess we'll divide it up into four quadrants. And so the first quadrant would be from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, second quadrant from 3 to 6, third quadrant from 6 to 9, and that fourth and final quadrant from 9 to 12. And this is not, as we kind of go through these different quadrants and go around the clock, so to speak, this is not me talking about one specific lifetime. This is kind of spanning many, many lifetimes as we go around this clock. So just be aware of that. Okay, so let's start with the first quadrant. Again, that is from 12 to 3. This is where souls tend to have a much more closed down crown chakra. So again, the crown chakra is at the top of the head. That's that spiritual center. So your claircognizance, your clear knowing, your transmediumship ability, your connection to your higher self and source and whatnot. So that crown chakra tends to be much more closed down. And there's much more of a rejection to spirituality and religion and kind of subscribing to this notion or this kind of belief picture, if you will, that spirit just isn't real. Which is, it's that atheism energy. But as a soul will progress through this first quadrant, from 12 to 3, so getting closer and closer to 3 o'clock, as it happens for the soul, the crown chakra is going to start opening up more, at least it tends to, and the soul will start to shift more from the atheism energy to agnostic. So kind of scratching the head and going, I sense somehow that there's something more to life. There's something out there, something greater than me. I can't quite pinpoint it. I don't really have any certainty about this, but I definitely sense that there's something more than what meets the physical eye. So that happens closer and closer to 3. And then that kind of leads us into the second quadrant. So this is from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So this is where souls we'll explore different religions. Again, keeping in mind that as we're not talking just in terms of one lifetime. This is spanning many, many lifetimes around the whole clock, even just within this particular quadrant from 3 to 6. So souls can explore different religions. Whether it's one lifetime in this religion or one lifetime in that religion, or series of lifetimes focusing on one religion and series of lifetimes focusing in this other religion. So Christianity and Buddhism, Judaism and Islam, all sorts of things they're kind of exploring. The other thing with this particular quadrant, the second quadrant, 3 to 6, is that there's the great potential of souls having really great kind of worldly success in, say like art, really being a top performer, performing artist, and, getting all the awards and accolades and all that, and people having great success in business and becoming top CEOs and all that, great success in science and mathematics. So there's a lot of potential for success in different areas of life here in this second quadrant. So that, from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, this first half of the soul evolutionary process using this diagram. So from 12 to 6, it's really about the world and the ego. That's what I tend to find. Now, the interesting thing is, as the soul kind of gets to that 6 o'clock, that's where they tend to usually hit a big wall. And when you hit that big wall, it can... it seems almost like you're never going to get through the wall, right? We've all experienced that, where we kind of metaphorically hit a wall. Well, some of us may have actually physically hit a wall, and that doesn't feel good, but but kind of metaphorically or energetically hitting a really big wall, it just doesn't seem we can, I don't know how to cope with this or get through this or what's going on. This doesn't make any real sense. Just because, in a good chunk of this quadrant, through the lifetimes within this quadrant, there's working towards success and the lifetimes where you have great success in different areas. And then suddenly, as you hit that 6 o'clock, hitting this really big wall. So when they hit that wall and just, doesn't seem like anything's going to work, how do I get through this, or what's wrong, basically? Souls might resort to drugs and alcohol to kind of cope. And then some souls may kind of take it as far as, I can't even take this, and then committing suicide. Um, and then there's souls that will, in that rock bottom state, they just kind of go, I don't know what else to do but pray to God, you know, and that tends to kind of help them get through to the next quadrant, so the third quadrant. Um, when I kind of look at the energy of that, just as a clairvoyant, as you kind of, when there's nothing else to do but to look within, the sense of just, okay, nothing's working. The only thing I really can think of is just gonna pray. I'm just gonna pray to God or whatever that. Even if you don't fully understand what God is or how to pray, that it's almost like a hand coming through the wall to pull you through the wall into the next quadrant. So this next quadrant is going to be from 6 to 9. So this is a third quadrant. This is a big energy shift, hence having to get through that really big wall that can feel almost impossible to get through, or at least very challenging, right? This is where souls will get an interest in spirituality. So they might start to, learn how to meditate. They might have out-of-body experiences, learn how to do energy healing and just about, energy work. But I find that the 6 to 9 quadrant, the third quadrant, tends to be really about the developing a strong connection with your higher self. So when you connect with your higher self, and that's a strong relationship there and connection, you have a greater sense of having your answers and your information as an immortal being. So you might enter this quadrant. You get through the wall, so to speak, make it into the third quadrant, just past 6, and you still might kind of like, oh, I don't really. There's this uncertainty, this kind of like, oh, I don't know, but there's at least now there's this interest in spirituality, and I want to find my answers. I just don't know how or what that looks like. It can start like that, but as you kind of progress more and more towards 9 o'clock or to 9 o'clock in this quadrant, you'll have a greater sense of what your answers are. You don't feel a sense of being lost, or I don't have access to my answers and information. Now, by the end of this quadrant, you go, oh, okay, now I have, I'm tapped into this part of myself, and it's very effortless to just kind of get my answer about whatever it is in life, which is a great place to be. Now, again, when a soul tends to reach this 9 o'clock, you tend to really have a great relationship with the 3 aspects of you as a soul. So those 3 aspects of the soul would be yourself as the feeling self, the reasoning self, and the higher self, right? And so there's just this real great relationship. They're kind of working together, and there's not this. It's not a. It's not a dysfunctional relationship or anything of that nature. They're actually kind of because they can work separately, but they can also kind of work together. And I tend to find that's when there's more permission for magic and miracles. So by the time you hit 9 o'clock, there's a solid relationship between these 3 parts of you as a soul. You might even, some souls might really want to help in some fashion or way, or share to those who are just coming into this quadrant. So the people that are finally making it through that big wall at 6 o'clock, And getting into the third quadrant, souls that are 9 o'clock might kind of be willing to share or help in some way. That can look in, that could be teaching, meditation, but that can show up as different ways. But yeah, definitely being a helpful guide in some fashion, or just sharing, because you've gone through your own experiences, and by the time you're in this quadrant, this side of the fence, so to speak, the second half, from 6 to 12, it's about turning within. It's about the inner experience. So you've had many, many inner experiences by this point that you can share your wisdom to those just getting into this quadrant. Okay, yeah, so then that leads us to the final quadrant. So from 9 to 12, the last one. So this is really about source. We could say God, but I tend to just use the word source. God just seems to be a very charged word for a lot of people, but same thing. So this is definitely going to be energy of prayer here. So a lot of praying and, basically seeing and recognizing source in everything and everyone. It could be simple as looking at a stone, a blade of grass, people, the sky, yourself, just starting to see and totally recognize, oh, wait a second, this energy of source, you can start to see it in everything, basically. Souls that are in this quadrant are going to be very neutral, especially even to really, really challenging energies that one might witness or be exposed to just being in this world. So there's just a high degree of neutrality, not necessarily really losing your space so much to things. Yeah, we'll just keep it as that. And then there's this really clearing up remaining images in your mind that are, so from 6 to 9, you're kind of clearing the pictures in your mind, the images in your mind that are between you and your higher self. When you get into the final quadrant, it's more about kind of clearing the remaining pictures that you have in your mind between you and source. So you're just getting closer and closer to source and seeing it clearly and recognizing it and all of that. And so, yeah, that's the final quadrant. So, but from 6 to 12, it's about turning within. It's less to do with this physical world and ego and all that, and it's really about the interior, the inside, or the inner experiences, and just turning within. And that's really what meditation is about, right? Is turning within. Okay, so that's just the basic diagram here, the 4 quadrants of your soul evolutionary process. Yeah, if this is interesting, kind of give it a like, or feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.